please remind me. I appreciate that. Okay, hold on. We're going to go. We're going to teach you right now how to grow 5 to 10 times, and that's conservative, more food with less space, less water, less work, less cost, no weeds in any soil with no soil amendments. And it's completely portable. So if you need to get up and get out of Dodge, and you're going to live up in the mountains, this is the only completely portable, instant growing food production system that I've run across. This was developed by Dr. Jacob Mitleider. Those are not PhDs that he earned. He never earned a PhD. Those are all from international governments around the world that has given him what do you call that when you don't? Honorary, because he's transformed their nations because they taught them how to grow food. I don't have time to go into his history, but an incredible man. Jacob Mitleider had some plant patents. If you have 1 plant patent, you're smart. If you have 2 plant patents, you're really smart. If you have 3, you're a rock star. Jacob Mitleider had 11 plant patents. This man understood plants. And so I'm just the messenger. He's the man. I'm just paying forward what I learned. And we're going to get you in control of your own food. We're going to talk, and to do this, I don't care how you garden. There are 6 essential, immutable laws to plant growth that you have to understand and follow. If you do not understand and don't follow, you do it at your own peril and maybe your own life. Someone just said, "Oh, I'm a terrible gardener." I said, "No, you just don't know how to garden." I came across this gardening method 3 years ago. I am now asked to speak publicly on how to grow food as if your life depends on it in 3 years. My very first season, I was the local gardening guru. I'm asked, I speak almost, I don't know how many times a month, okay? And it's because I read a $20 book. I'm nobody special, but I can follow instructions and sit on the shoulders of a giant. Jacob Mitleider. Okay, please put this in your notes. A plant can only be as productive as its greatest limiting factors. We're going to teach you how to eliminate or minimize those limiting factors. It is absolutely critical that you understand that. Make sure that your garden has 6 to 8 hours of light. All this is in the Mitleider Gardening Course book, so take as much notes as you can, but remember, it's all in the book. It's a $20 book. I'm not trying to sell you a book. I'm just telling you what I read to get it here on this stage today. It's simple. Gardening should be simple, it should be cheap, it should be easy, and it should be high nutrition. Those were my categories when I was looking for a gardening method. Make sure that you have full exposure to the west and to the south. Since we live in the northern hemisphere, put your tall plants on the north, plant your corn on the north, and your bush beans on the south. And nothing will shade each other. Okay. Temperature is the second law of plant growth. This is critical. Well, why do we start planting the 1st of June or Mother's Day, end of May in Idaho? Because of temperature. Same thing why you do it here, right? Because of temperature. When does the season end? Because of temperature. If you understand how to control temperature, you can grow anything, anywhere, year-round. We're going to show you a simple, easy way to control those temperatures. But you need to make sure that you're germinating your seeds between 70 and 85 degrees. We plant our lettuce, our cabbage, our cauliflower, our tomatoes, our beets, everything in the same seeding tray, all at 80 degrees, and they all germinate in 2 to 3 days. If you're planting seeds in 50-degree soil or colder than 70 degrees, it may take 2 to 3 weeks, and you may get 50 to 70% germination or less. How many of you put more than 1 corn seed in the ground? How many corn seeds did we put in the hole? 3? How many? 4? I've heard 5. I've heard 7. Do you understand if you're growing food as if your life depended on it, you just used up 7 years worth of corn seed in 1 hole? If you're planting 7, or 5, or 3. Or you just tripled, quadrupled, sextupled your cost, right? Because you know how many corn seeds I put in a hole? None. None. I transplant my corn. Why do I transplant my corn? because I'm growing food as if my life depends on it. And so that hole in the garden has to produce food. And so I will germinate. If I want to plant 50 corn in the garden, I will germinate in the kitchen counter or in the basement or somewhere 55 seeds. I'll get 100% germination. We usually get 97 to 100% germination. When I did it this summer, first time I'd ever grown corn, you'll see it here. I planted 55 seeds on our kitchen counter. 55 plants came up. I planted 50, the 50 strongest plants in the garden. Is this making sense now? And every one of them now can withstand a greater temperature change because it's now a plant and it's already germinated. I planted my corn in my kitchen counter in March, planted it outside in April. All right. Now, before I go here, make sure that we're protecting the plants from extreme heat and cold. So I just moved from Houston, Texas, and we were worried about heat. Here we're worried about cold. My gardening method didn't change at all. I just understood the plant law. And this is my garden in Shelley, Idaho. I used to be in the floodplain of the Snake River. This is all silt and clay mixed in with a bunch of morning glory. All right? That's all it is. This looked like this right over here. It was all weeds up to here, and we took a tiller, we sifted the rocks. I thought they were potatoes at first. Oh, look at all these potatoes. No, they were rocks. Sifted the rocks, sifted the weeds out. There is no mulch, no sawdust, no sand, no manure, no compost, nothing in this soil. And this is what we were growing May 29th. Yeah, I wish you could see all the mouths open right now. Okay? Your garden could have looked like this May 29th. That is 8 feet tall corn. You could do this in your garden. You have a longer growing season here in Utah than we do in Idaho. Why is this 8 feet tall on May 29th? Why have we already harvested 2 pumpkins? Why is my rust potatoes already in blossom? Because I understand these 6 laws, all right? So, you see what I did here? I made these little arches. These are called mini greenhouses. That little arch cost me 47 cents to make. It's in lesson 23 here in the Midlife Gardening Course book. This book right here, I'll refer to this a lot, since this is about all I know about gardening. Lesson 23, an entire lesson on cold weather gardening. How to do that. 47 cents to make that little arch. It's made out of bent PVC. How to bend it and what the measurements are all in the book. So you can see I have a 4 foot wide of corn, so I made a wider arch. How do I seal it? I throw dirt up on the side. No hold down straps, no pins, no clamps, none of that other stuff you have to buy. It's just dirt holding down the plastic. When it gets above 50 degrees, I open up the ends, let the air blow through. And when it gets above 75 degrees outside, I just take the plastic off one side, throw it over the other side, and that's how I grew that corn. Yes?
In Twin Falls, Idaho, we did these big gusts of wind. Wouldn't that just blow it off?
I was hoping somebody would ask. This plastic, and I was out there, and we clocked it, 60 mile an hour winds, didn't move an inch.
That's
not at all.
4 mil. So
4 mil, but see, you know how many hundreds of pounds of dirt's on that all the way around? Just a shovel full of dirt on the around. That's all guaranteed. Didn't move an inch. Okay? And that was one of my big concerns because it's windy up there, and I'm out in the country. There is nothing around me. There's no houses around me. I'm just all potato fields. Yes, these are raspberry bushes. This is my greenhouse. Notice I talked about protecting from heat. I have 40% shade cloth. By the way, a good place to get this stuff is at Steve Regan, R-E-G-A-N. They're in Salt Lake and Logan. He has all this material. And a really good, the best price I can find in the country, he has the best price. I'm not associated with anybody here or anybody I recommend. Right? I'm just telling you, I'm just trying to save you time and money. Okay, so I put that up when it gets 85 degrees or hotter outside. I put that over my greenhouse. This is the first year I've ever used a greenhouse, yes.
It's online, Steve Regan.
Yeah, go to steveregan.com. Or
just, from around here, so we want to make sure.
Yeah, just look for Steve Regan, Salt Lake City, on Google it, and he'll come up too. All right. Is this Would this be awesome to be in your backyard? You could totally do this. I don't know anything. I had never gardened before 3 years ago. All right, next year you guys can be up here. All right, because all we're trying to do is pay this forward. This is Texas. This is another way to protect from the cold weather and the wind and the hot weather. Is here I'm growing vertically. By the way, this is the first year I ever grew tomatoes. Not bad for my first try. And I built some T-frames. How to build the T-frames and the material list is in the book. Then I covered with PVC. That's in the book. And then I made roll-up sides with the greenhouse plastic. So when it got really windy, I could roll this down and protect the plants from the wind. The other 3 sides were completely open for ventilation and light. Worked great. All right. If you have this here in Utah or Idaho, you could be picking your tomatoes in December. Because what really kills them is the wind, right? Yeah, absolutely. How you guys doing? All right, so how to build that's in the book. So that's temperature. Do you understand that there's no gardening season any longer? If you control temperature, you can garden year-round. So I started planting in March, April, May. So I'm 3 months ahead of what most people are gardening. And in the fall, October, November, December, all outside, all with no heat. I just tripled your gardening season, didn't I? I didn't. Jacob Midlighter did. With the simple law of temperature. Okay, air. We're talking about soil air. I am growing in silty clay right now. And I don't know if you noticed, but there's a lot here. Notice here, this is raised. I tilled down 2 inches deep. This is all in the book, less than 2. I pulled the dirt in from the walkway, and now then I tilled that. I never ever have to till the garden again. Just this one area right here, once a year, when I put in the new plants. All right? That's raised, so what did I do when I tilled it? I loosened the soil. I aerated it. So now the plants have all the oxygen that they can get, even in this silty clay that I'm growing in, with no soil amendments. All right. Water. Don't make the mistake we made for 30 years. My wife is a great gardener. She is a gardener's gardener. We've been married 30 years. She's a certified master gardener. Her name's Sue. She's out here in the Midlighter gardening booth, right as you walk out here. We would pay, I can't believe I'm even saying this, we would pay to buy manure. We'd buy animal feces, bring it into our garden, spread it all the way across the garden. I remember getting truckloads of this stuff, and then we tilled it all in, and guess what we just paid for? Weeds. And then what did we do to the weeds? We set up the lawn sprinkler, and we watered every weed every week. And for some reason, we had weeds in our garden. I don't understand how that happened. So, never ever buy manure, compost, mulch. Don't need it. You don't need to hassle with it. You don't need to grow it. You don't need to do any of that stuff. You don't need it. But never, ever, ever overhead water, because weed seeds will blow in. I live out in the country. I can guarantee you weed seeds blow in. And when you're trying to, and you're watering every square foot of your garden, you're going to be watering those weed seeds. So, what I do for weeding, you know, God promised Adam that he'd have weeds, wouldn't he? Didn't he? Noxious weeds, and you'd have to work by the sweat of your brow. This is Adam's answer to God, right here. You will never see me bend over and weed. I don't. It takes me about 10 minutes a week to weed my garden that you saw. If you're using drip irrigation, you're wasting water. So if you're having to live in a survival situation and the electricity's out and you're walking down the Snake River to get a bucket full of water, you want that water to go as far as possible. The reason is because we water directly at the root zone. Why would we want to water the whole garden? We only want to grow vegetables. So we'll show you how we do that, but it takes very little water. Okay, nutrition is the 5th law. This is where most of us spend most of our money and our time. Something's wrong with my plant. What do? So I'm going to throw some more of this on it. I'm going to throw some more of that on it. What do? We're going to show you how to identify what the real problems are. Plants need 16 nutrients. They get 3 from the air. I don't know if you caught that in the previous slide. They get nitrogen, they get carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen from the air, called carbohydrates. That's where they make carbohydrates. They need 13 more nutrients from the soil. The problem is, here in Utah and Idaho, we have high pH soil, like 8, 8.5. Do you know what that really means? That means all those minerals are tied. They are not available to the plants. If they were available to the plants, you'd have a 7 pH, okay, or 6.5. It's just, the soil is loaded with nutrients that the plants cannot get. That created 3 limiting factors. We were talking earlier about if women ever had a period in their life where they had an iron deficiency, that's 1 nutrient. When they had 1 nutrient deficiency, it didn't make any difference how many other nutrients they had. So you can see how you just created 3 limiting factors. How many of you giving your plants calcium, sulfur, and magnesium? 1 person. Okay. Jacob Midlighter said calcium is the backbone to a healthy plant. Micronutrients. These are called micronutrients because they need less of them. Now, ladies, when you were taking iron supplements, if you took as much iron supplements as you were taking protein, you would have killed yourself. Right? But we know that a little bit of iron is absolutely essential. So these are just as important as the major nutrients. Have you ever seen a black part? You cut up a potato and it's black in the middle. Anyone ever seen that? What's that called? Potato rot. It's lack of boron. The classic boron deficiency symptom. Plant. Anybody know?
They're not water soluble.
Because they're not water soluble. Exactly. They actually have to be processed in order to be water soluble. So if we're putting all this money and all these nutrients in the soil organically and they're not available to the plants, who's getting fed? The salesman's getting fed. That's true. This is a multi-billion-dollar industry. But where are all the nutrients going? Who's eating it? The worms and the bacteria, and that's what we're counting on, because they have to process the organic nutrients. They process them, they poop them out, and now they are inorganic or water soluble. Now they are immediately available to the plant. And why do we do all this? Because we don't want to use any processed fertilizers. Guess what we just did? We just processed the fertilizer, didn't we? We just went the most expensive long route to do that. Okay, by show of hands, besides please, is there anybody else in these audience besides me who took eggshells, crushed them up, put them in the garden, and waited 6 months to a year or 2 years for the calcium to become available? Like, what were we thinking? But we were told this is a good way to calcium, right? You know how many eggs you would need to eat to get enough calcium for your plants? And then you'd have to wait 2 to 3 years. So we no longer use any animal products. We no longer use organic fertilizers because they're not available to the plants. We're dependent on the microbes. What if the microbes aren't there or they're constipated? Then they can't poop it out and the plants can't use it. Okay? So we now use water-soluble, all-natural mineral fertilizers made from crushed rock. J.I. Rodeo, I get this off of Wikipedia, popularized the term organic. He is the father of organic gardening. This is something interesting he said. He said, organic means without pesticides. How do you grow a garden without pesticides? Because this is what he said. This is organic. This is what it means. Without pesticides. How do you grow a garden without pesticides? Yes, strong plants or healthy plants. Absolutely. Now, you must have some gardening background because you know a healthy plant actually deters, repels insects. Literally will repel insects. A weak and dying plant attracts insects. And I don't believe there's any good or bad insects. I think they're just insects doing their job. And so, if you see a bunch of Aphids in your garden, there's a problem in your garden, right? Worse, if you see a bunch of ladybugs in your garden, then there's a real problem. Because ladybugs are carnivorous. Ask yourself, why are those ladybugs in my garden? They're eating the aphids and the spider mites. You know why they're there? Because you, like me, planted marigolds in your garden, which attract spider mites. Yes, absolutely. And I see you're shaking your heads. That's where they came from. Yes, there are so many myths about gardening, it is unbelievable. All right? So never ever plant marigolds in your garden. If you do, track where the spider mites come from, and you'll see them right where the marigolds are. When you find those ladybugs, I guarantee you, there's going to be spider mites or aphids right there. Okay, yes.
What is it for the those animals underground?
Razor bag's good. That's correct. What else does it mean? It's an element. Nitrogen is nitrogen is nitrogen. Isn't this just simple? Doesn't this just ring true? Okay. You know what? We're not advertising for organic gardening here. Promoting. Propagandizing. That's what I was looking for. We're not doing that. Easy for you to say. That's not what he meant. This turned into a multi-billion-dollar industry, didn't it? How many? Ladies? Yes. Right? Okay. Is it an element? Yes. Is it a chemical? It is, isn't it? Is water a chemical? Yes. So people say, I don't want to put any chemicals in my garden. I say, great. So what do you use to water? Yeah. That's hydrogen and oxygen. Matter of fact, there's 2 times more hydrogen than there is oxygen in it. Okay? So don't be. We've drank that Kool-Aid from all the advertising from the organic gardening. Okay? And we're afraid of chemicals. Let me ask you this. When your body sees this carrot, when you're eating this carrot, does your body see this orange pointy thing? Or does it see the vitamin A, the riboflavin, the calcium, the iron, magnesium, potassium, phosphorus, manganese, copper, zinc, and sodium? What does your body see? It sees all the nutrients, doesn't it? That's why we eat the carrot. What's it do with the nutrients? It absorbs them. What else does it do with them? These are building blocks. Have you ever asked yourself, where does the sugar come from in the apple? Where'd the tree get the sugar? Do you have like loads of sugar in your dirt? Did it get from the birds flying over it? It makes it, doesn't it? These are the building blocks. It'll make it if it has the building blocks. Your body makes thousands of nutrients. One tomato, when it has all the building blocks, will make 10,000 phytonutrients if it has the building blocks. Right? If I give you all the ingredients to my wife's famous chocolate chip cookies and don't give you the sugar or don't give you the salt, you think it's going to make a difference? It's not going to be the same, is it? Your plants need all these nutrients for you to get the nutrients, and it will make all the nutrients that you need. So what you're saying is that your body's processing these nutrients, isn't it? So what you're saying is your body is a chemical processing plant. And if it weren't, we'd all be dead. Okay? So thank goodness that's how it works. So let's take a look at what happens when you don't have the right nutrients. Anybody of you ever seen this photo before? Any of you seen this in your garden?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, what's it called? The symptom. You simply bring that leaf in, you look through this book, you identify the symptom, and then he tells you how much of that nutrient to give it. Trees, yes. Doesn't make any difference if it has roots. It needs that nutrient and tells you how much to give it. Okay? You need to buy that book. We have some of these. We still have some left here at the booth. Go through that door, and you'll see the Mid-Ladder Gardening sign and the Solar Bear sign. All right? You'll see the solar ovens first, and that's what you see my wife in there. Yes. Mid-Ladder, the gardening doctor, the garden doctor. And I told her, don't worry, honey, I'm going to take care of your problem. I'm going to set up all these different kind of gardens, and I'll take care of your problem. She says, don't touch my garden. She knew I didn't know anything about gardening. Stay away from my garden. She made me have a 5-foot border between my garden and her garden. You'll see it here in the photo. However, I said, I'm going to try the Mittleider gardening method. She said, what's that? I said, I don't know. It sounds like it answers all my questions. She said, oh, Mittleider. Oh, that's right. She was the master gardener when you called in on the hotline because you had this plant that was dying. She was the one that was answering the phone. And she'd listen to you on the phone. She'd put you on hold. She'd walk over to the library bookshelf. She'd pull out these 3 books. She'd flip through the books, find the nutrient deficiency, get back on the phone and say, give it some Epsom salt. And they go, wow, you master gardeners are so smart. How do you know all this stuff? That's what she knew about Mittleider gardening, was these 3 books. This is what they use in the hotline room. But anyway, interesting. Magnesium deficiency, boron deficiency. So, Jacob Mittleider found that all the soils in the world are depleted, so why don't mix up your own deficiency nutrient mix? And so this is the first mix. 80 parts calcium, 4 parts magnesium, 1 part boron. How do you mix that? You go to Home Depot, Lowe's, Walmart, and you get these items. Now this is all on page lesson number 5 in the Mittleider Gardening Course book. So, and you can mix this at any kind of volume that you want. So just get yourself some gypsum, Epsom salt, and borax. Mix it together, and you've mixed up your pre-plant nutrient mix. Everybody who's got perennials and trees right now needs to mix this up and put it on the garden before winter comes in. Here in Utah, you do not use lime. Lime will raise the pH. That's a bad thing here. Use gypsum. Do not use lime. Use gypsum. If you're in Seattle, you use lime. Here, we want to not raise the pH. All right? All right. Then we've got potassium deficiency. Have you ever seen your leaves get dry on the edges and they get really crinkly? I mean, they just fall apart when you. Okay? That's not water. But what do? We water. And so now we just broken the 3rd law of plant growth, and that is we've just overwatered them and we just drowned the poor plant. It's simply the plant saying, I need some potassium. 1/4 of an ounce per linear foot, according to Dr. Mittleider. That's it. Okay? And it goes away. All right. Manganese, molybdenum. Does this look familiar? The yellow leaves. But you know what? There's 7 different colors of yellow, meaning 7 different nutrient deficiencies. The yellow leaves the new yellow leaves are iron. The old yellow leaves are, if the leaves are yellow and they're old, that's magnesium. So go through the book, you'll learn it. What we're teaching you is how to be a plant doctor, aren't we? When you go to the doctor, what's he look for? Symptoms. The plant's screaming at us for the symptoms. We just have to understand what the plant's saying. And it's all written down in the book. Okay? All right. And then, so this is to address all the nutrients the plants need. Dr. Mittleider came up with this nutrient mix called the Mittleider Weekly Feed All Natural Mineral Nutrient Mix. You take a 10-ounce package of this. 2 10-ounce packages come in a package. This has the manganese in it. It has the molybdenum in it. I always have to think twice before I say that. I had to practice that. It has the zinc and the copper and the chloride and the other things, the micronutrients, the trace elements. By the way, where do you go around here to get molybdenum? Manganese. That's why the non-profit organization Food for Everyone puts these packages together, because you can't buy these. Do you know why you can't buy these? Well, you can if you look hard enough. Because this nutrient mix replaces all the entire wall of fertilizers at Home Depot and Lowe's. Do they want you buying this and mixing your own? No. This will never be in Home Depot and Lowe's. Ever. Okay? You can get this at mittleidergardening.com, or we have them here at a discount, no tax, no shipping, here at the fair. Okay? Until we run out. So I brought some down with me. I get them from the nonprofit organization, Food for Everybody, Food for Everyone, and I brought them down with me. You just mix it up yourself. You take one of those 10-ounce packages. You take 25 pounds of 16 all-purpose natural mineral fertilizer. You can get it at Home Depot, Lowe's, Cow Ranch, ISA, Steve Regan, okay, and some Epsom salt. And this is what it looks like when you're done mixing it. I take my can here. My rolls are 30 feet long. I put down ½ an ounce per linear foot. Remember, that's the first thing we started off with. I mark my can one time. I scoop it into my 5-gallon bucket, sprinkle it right down the middle of my growing area, and now I've just fertilized my plants for a week. Okay? Guess what I do next week? The same thing. How often do you like to eat? Right? So what we used to do in the past, and now it's kind of like, aha, we put down all the mulch, compost, manure, and everything at the beginning of the year, right? And then we're right when the plants are producing all the fruit and everything 90 days later, all the nutrients are gone. So here we feed once a week. Okay? Makes it simple. And you'll have the most amazing fruit and vegetables you've ever tasted. So, this is my experiment I told you about. Here's my wife's garden here. This is the no-touch zone. My wife says, allowed to cross this walkway here, this 5-foot walkway. And so I had my back deep garden method going over here. I've been doing that for 2 years. We had the lasagna garden. You guys know what that is? You have one layer of straw and another layer of this. And we had garbage cans full of different layers and stuff. And it would last like 6 weeks, and it all deteriorate because it's all organic material. It was a nightmare. I had my off-grid self-watering container gardening system over here. I had a hydroponic garden over here. And then I put in my midlighter garden. You can see this I just put in my midlighter garden. Yep. All right. So I could literally stand right here on the corner of my garden shed and see all of the gardens at the same time. We were planting all the same vegetables in the different gardens so I could see the difference. I had created a laboratory. I didn't think about that, but I had a friend come over and says, "You got a laboratory back here." And that's kind of how I do it. I have people telling me all the time, "David, I have a great garden." I say, "Compared to who?" Yeah. Right? If I'm living in the bush in Zimbabwe and I have a great life, great. Compared to who? So this gave me a comparison. My wife loves beets. I'm not a fan of beets. But as long as I can remember, she's planted 100 beets at the beginning of the year, and then she transplants them into the garden. This particular year, my first year using the midlighter gardening method, she planted all of her beets, and she had leftover beets. She said, reluctantly, "Dave, do you want to plant some of these in your garden?" Because she didn't want to throw them away. I said, "Sure, I'll plant some beets for you." So her beets are right over here. My beets are right here. When we harvested, this was her biggest beet, and that was my biggest beet. This is a 3-month-old gardener compared to a 30-year-old certified master gardener. We did not talk about gardening. I tried to explain to her that we were not in competition, but I was clearly winning. Okay, all joking aside, if your life depended on it, which beet would you want to grow? Now the thing is that I was going for pennies, coming out once a week, feeding it the balanced nutrient mix, watering it once a day for 60 seconds, and then going back in the house. She was making compost tea, she meaning we, okay? We were putting in the organic fertilizer, then we were putting in the fish emulsion and the seaweed extract, and we were working there constantly. We still had bugs and diseases and problems. Okay, so here's another one. Here's a photo from my back to Eden garden. This was the one I was on the right-hand side. This is the broccoli. Broccoli is growing right here. Here's the cabbage. Here's my broccoli in the midlighter garden. Here's my cabbage in the midlighter garden. Okay, what's wrong with this broccoli?
It's flowering.
It's flowering. Why is it flowering? Because it's dying. Before it dies, it wants to set off fruit. Okay? It wants to put out seeds. We had honeybees. This is 1 inch across. That's how big that head was. Okay? I walked 12 feet away, took a picture of the broccoli in my midlighter garden that I planted 6 weeks after I had planted this broccoli. Okay? If your life depended on it, which one would you rather grow? Here's my cabbage for the Back to Eden garden method. Now, the Back to Eden garden method, I tried for 2 years. I talked to the developer of that, Paul, several times on the phone, watched the film several times, and it wasn't working because now I could see a comparison. Now, without a comparison, this looks great. This is a cabbage. Notice I don't see any nutrient deficiencies on it. I don't see a bunch of wormholes on it. I don't see anything wrong with it until I walked 8 feet away over to the midlighter garden and took a picture of the midlighter cabbage. I was so astounded. I harvested the one from the Back to Eden garden and put them side by side. I document everything. All right? Which one would you rather grow? Which one do you think is more nutritious to you? All right? That's why we grow vegetables, right? So we can be healthy. Okay, so now I'm just going to start bragging, because this is my first year gardening, and I'm going to show you what I grew, all right? Here's another cabbage. Look at that cabbage. Wow. Sugar snap peas. I love sugar snap peas. This was our first day harvest. Even the little girl, look at her mouth just dropped open. Look at those sugar snap peas. They're amazing. We were lucky to get that many in the house, if you know what I'm talking about. We were eating them out in the garden like they were candy. Onions as big as softballs. Now, let me take a couple things here. I'm growing in sand and sawdust. What I didn't tell you is that we had already spent $1,000 for garden soil mix for my wife's garden. She had bought the worms. She had bought the ladybugs. Does any of this sound familiar? Okay. She had been putting all that stuff in her garden. I'm growing in sand and sawdust. Do you know why? Because I didn't have any more money. I already spent it on my wife's garden. It was cheap. Dirt should be dirt cheap. All right? Dirt should be able to hold the plant. Will sand and sawdust do that? It should hold the water. Will sand and sawdust do that? It should hold the nutrients. Will sand and sawdust do that? It doesn't make any difference what the soil is. We've grown in 100% pine needles. We've grown in 100% blow sand. It doesn't make any difference because we provide all the nutrients the plants need. We just need the soil to hold the nutrients in the water and the plant.
I noticed on your picture that you had a hydroponic garden. How did that go?
It didn't. Very expensive. You got to do it inside. That's one of the things. You've got to have a completely controlled environment. Okay?
Isn't it like the principle of the hydroponic where you don't worry about that you're providing?
Yes, she says this is like the hydroponic. This is actually called the poor man's hydroponic method. Yes, exactly for that. Everything's precise, measured, and you get exact results. Something else I want to show you. This is my watering system right here. This is 3/4 inch PVC. Holes drilled every 4 inches. So it sprays down so I can see the water going down. Okay? We tried soaker hoses. They are clogged up, got slimy, right? We tried the drip irrigation, clogged up. We'd nick it with a hose, something like that, then we're putting goof plugs in it. Okay? We can actually see how much water our plants are getting. And because I've already sprinkled down my weekly feed, guess what's happening when I turn on the water? To my water-soluble nutrients. Yeah, every day it feeds the plants. It's perfect. Jacob Midlighter developed this after tens of thousands of gardens. You think after 10,000 gardens you'd have to figure out what worked and what didn't work, right?
So where did you apply the weekly feed?
I apply the weekly feed right between the rows. Okay? That's one growing area. You grow on both sides of the growing area, and you fertilize and water right down the center. Yeah.
Did you just sprinkle it on, or did you?
You don't need to mix it in. You just sprinkle it in right down the center. Just right down the center, right underneath that watering line, and that watering line does a great job dissolving it. All right. Onions. What do I know? Tomatoes. Clusters and clusters of tomatoes. Bell peppers. Again, this is my first year as a gardener. Okay, here are my bell peppers. Here are my cucumbers. Here are my cantaloupe, yes, growing vertically. My watermelon growing vertically. My bean beans over here. Okay? This is what we're harvesting. Yes.
Last time I saw you selling vegetables.
Yes. Yes. You need to prune a lot. You notice how close we're planting these? This is a cucumber plant. How much of a space does a cucumber plant take up on the ground? 9 inches when you're growing vertically. Can you see how by growing vertically I've just increased how much I can produce in the same space? Watermelon. How big of a watermelon, a pumpkin plant, how big is that space that take? We're growing vertically, 9 inches apart. So when you're growing that close, or even when you're growing zucchini plants, you want to make sure that you're pruning so the plants are not overlapping each other and causing shadows. Yes?
If you're planting watermelon, isn't the weight of the watermelon to start growing up?
Yeah, you can plant up to 6 pounds. Okay, after that you need to add a little support to the watermelon. All I did is put baler twine around the neck of the watermelon as it's growing vertically. I put some baler twine around that, and I've grown 25-pound watermelon. Yes. Hand? No? Okay.
What kind of water are you using regular?
What kind of water? That's a good question. When I bought my property, I was very excited and specific that I had to have watering rights. That's the big deal. I think more people have been killed in Idaho for water than anything else. So I'm out there admiring my irrigation ditches going in front of my house. My neighbor walks up and I said, "Wow, you do a really good job in maintaining this ditch. There aren't any weeds in here." He says, "Yeah, 2 weeks ago I sprayed Roundup in it." So I'm using well water or city water, but I'm not using irrigation water because I have no idea what's in it. So that's what I'm using. All right, cucumbers. Again, this is what my wife's using in her garden, right? I'm over here growing all this goodness, and she's over here growing this. Then I look over one day, and she's got a can of Midlighter Weekly Feed over in her garden. True story. You can ask her out here. I didn't say anything, but I grabbed my phone and took this picture just to document it, okay, if it ever came up again. That evening she said, "Dave, can you teach me how to mix up the stuff that you use?" And I was floored. I'm thinking, she's the gardener in the family. I'm just the guy who's doing an experiment. And I said, "Yes, I'd be glad to teach you how to do this. But why?" She said, "Because you work so much less than I do." She was working herself to death, okay, and she still had the bugs and the diseases. I'm 5 feet away, no diseases and 0 bugs. How do you grow organically, pesticide-free? You grow healthy plants, don't you? And I'm doing it very cheaply. So she started using it. This is her kale. The lettuce exploded. We should have been rabbits. Okay? This is her spinach. When she went to move the spinach aside to sprinkle down the weekly feed, she underneath the leaves, it was thousands of aphids. After all this work, all this fertilizing, everything she had done, and she just like, again. So she put down the Midlighter Weekly Feed. She's okay. I'll come back in 2 days and spray neem oil. She came back in 2 days. Not one aphid in the garden. They left because they literally repel insects. A healthy plant repels insects. A dead and dying plant attracts them so the insect can do its job, which is to get rid of the dead and dying plants. Okay? So we started feeding everything. That is not a grape cluster. That is a blackberry. Okay? These are the strawberries we started growing in our backyard. We could be selling these things for lots of money. We're eating them. All right? That's why we grew them, right? And so we could have the goodness. Ornamental trees. You want to have the best looking flowers and ornamental trees and fruit trees on the planet? Feed it. Just give it the nutrition that it needs. All right? It's trying to scrape and claw any kind of nutrition out of the soil it can get, but that's not available to it. All right? So feed it everything. My wife went back to the Master Gardeners Association and was telling people what the results she was getting, and they said, "You're not using compost." "No." "You're not using manure." "No." "You're not using organic fertilizer." "No." It's like, you're not using compost, and they said, "Prove it." So they gave her 4 beds, and in 3 months, we outproduced them 5-1 in sand and sawdust. Why did we use sand and sawdust? To show them it didn't make any difference. So, the 6th law of competition. So, is nutrition important? Is that what we struggle with? Competition. Weeds. Well, I showed you how we get rid of weeds here, right? You get the Kenyan 2-way hoe. You use this early and often. In other words, once a week, the beginning of the season, and whenever you need it, and you've taken care of your weeds. The other way you get rid of weeds is you remove them. Originally, remember what I said? We sifted out the weeds, the rocks, when we started, and that's all in the book, in garden preparation, lesson number 1. How do you get rid of the insects? You have healthy plants. You have a buffer. I don't know if you noticed there was a buffer between my lawn and my garden area. That's a dead zone. I don't let anything grow there. Why would the bug in my lush, soft, green, moist lawn travel across this 5-foot barrier to get to my garden? It just doesn't. All right. How do you get rid of animals? Well, I've got deer, I've got skunks, I've got raccoons. I put up an electric fence. It's about, I don't know if you know, it's about this tall. I kept them all out. Now, did it make any difference if I obeyed all the other laws and didn't obey this law? Yeah, because then all the deer and the raccoons and everything would come and eat my garden. You have to obey all 6 laws. How do you get rid of diseases? You grow a fast, healthy growing plant. You saw my corn May 29th. That's 82-day corn we're harvesting in 64 days. 64 days? So who was the guy that called it 82-day corn? The guy who didn't give it the magnesium, the phosphorus, potassium, the molybdenum, right? All right? You won't die if you eat hot dogs and Twinkies, but you sure won't be as healthy as you could be. All right. What does it take to get started? Start this weekend. Start tomorrow. Go down and mix up your pre-plant nutrient mix. Mix up your weekly feed. Plant and feed your perennials, your trees. This was a garden. This used to be a lawn in Idaho Falls. This was the family's backyard. They decided they couldn't eat grass. They wanted to learn the skill of growing food because one day their life might depend on it. And this is their daughter right here. You can decide whether you want lawn, grass, or groceries. You decide. Yep, it really works. She's standing up too. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, it really works. All right, this was one morning's harvest, August 6th. My wife was tired because we had been, harvesting all morning. I said, let's just take a photo. So we did. And she said, well, if we're going to take a photo, add a pitchfork. So we added the pitchfork. Okay? That isn't our biggest tomato. We're growing these tomatoes for 2 cents a pound. That's what it costs us to mix up the pre-plant and the weekly feed and to fertilize once a week with the weekly feed. All right? That's not our biggest tomato because we didn't want to brag, but we wanted to show you what a tomato can look like. And this is the most amazing. My wife said she had to stretch her hand so that the fingers would be in the picture. Anyway, this is my garden. There is pumpkins growing vertically, spaghetti squash. There's some onions. This is in the sand and sawdust in the bed. Doesn't make any difference whether you're growing in sand and sawdust or dirt. As you can see, it all grows. So what do you need to get started? What did I get when I got started? I got a bunch of these, okay, micronutrients. Now, when I say a bunch, this here sells for $15 at the expo, and it will make 60 pounds of nutrients because you're going to add 50 pounds of 16 that you get at Home Depot and Lowe's and IFA, and 16 pounds of Epsom salt if you mix both of these at once. I like mixing one at a time, so you get a 5-gallon bucket full. So that'll go a long way. If you're just getting started with this, I'd recommend seriously that you get 2 to 4 because you don't know how much you're going to be using. You're going to be using it on everything but your lawn. Don't use it on your lawn unless you want to mow 3 times a week. I am not exaggerating. Okay? You have never seen plants grow like this before. Does anybody use the midline gardening method here? How's it been going for you?